think that's the first time anybody's ever offered us food, which is nice. You know. Thank you.
Yeah, dude.
Number 48.
I literally just got done eating some baked spaghetti. Leftovers hit different the next day.
Sure that does.
All right, so this is Shirts Off Season 3, number 48. We're here today at Benford Brewing with Brian and Scott, owner of the tap room in Lancaster, and Brian's the owner of Benford. Join us as co-host today is Thomas, and we're here on like a special kind of occasion / mission, trying to help get the word out about what these guys are going through lately. They're facing a tough time with insurance going up and really, putting a what do you want to call it, just shitting all over your business.
Screwing us over, man.
Yeah, screwing you over.
Screwing us over.
And, we just want to talk with them and kind of get that word out about what's going on, because you guys aren't the only ones facing it. There's going to be other businesses, as you were saying, coming up soon, facing similar. The whole state.
The whole state.
So kind of, Brian, we were talking about before we started recording, if you just want to kind of walk us through what you're going through, and then Scott, we'll talk about Taproom and what their challenges they've been having lately.
So basically in 2017, the lawmakers passed a law requiring every business that serves alcohol, they must have $1 million liquor liability policy. I mean, there's a couple terminologies. I'm not, great with the terminology, but basically you have to have $1 million policy. Now, I've been in business for 14 years, and I've always had a liquor liability policy. Mm-hmm. I got terrorism policies too, and I don't even know what that shit does. Mm-hmm. So I don't know, why I have to have a terrorist policy, but I do. So I just figured that's just part of business, and here's your policy, and you just continue on, right? Don't care. I just need to know what my expenses are and roll. And so, but apparently, one interesting name that's came up, there's a attorney that you may have heard of that was a lobbyist to kind of help this bill get passed. His name was Alex Murdaugh.
Okay. Oh, yeah. I've heard of that name before.
So he was one of the lawyer lobbyists trying to push this law. So somehow all the lawmakers, because most of the politicians are lawyers, mm-hmm. and there's different kind of lawyers, but let's just say there's trial attorneys. I don't know how many trial attorneys, but they passed a law to make it to where trial attorneys can sue the business or sue the insurance company, which is easier money. There's a guaranteed $1 million target sitting over every business, and they can sue them and make the most money for themselves and for their client. That was, it's not good stuff. I mean, you're talking about somebody who most likely died in a DUI accident. Yeah. But another thing that they made us all joint liable. So this kind of goes back. Do you recall that bride that just got married in Folly Beach, and she was on the back of a golf cart, and some drunk woman ran into the back of her?
Vaguely, yeah.
It's been, 2-3 years ago, Scott, I guess? Yeah. And so, so my understanding, what I was told by an insurance agent, she went to 5 bars that day, that woman did. And so the trial attorneys could not determine which bar served her. So since the law was written, we're joint liable, they just sued all the bars.
Jesus.
Including the restaurant that gave her a Bloody Mary for breakfast. So if somebody comes here and drinks 2 beers here, and then they go over to LA Tap Room and drink 2 beers at LA Tap Room, and they go to the grocery store and do a little grocery shopping, and then on the way home decide to stop at a gas station because they forgot to buy a beer, they pick up a 6-pack of Natty Lights, chug those on the way home, decide that they're hungry now, they go to a Mexican restaurant, order a fishbowl margarita, get a couple tacos, go home, they kill somebody. They're going to sue all of us except for the gas station because they sold them a 6-pack of beer to go, which is off premise.
Wow.
So anybody's liable. That includes golf courses, the bars at bars at grocery stores like Lowe's Beer Den, Harris Teeter's have bars, the VFWs, the Moose Lodge, L restaurants. If you're pouring a beer in an open, or any alcohol in an open container, serving it to them, you are joint liable for the bad decisions that person can make.
And that's just South Carolina state.
South Carolina law.
Okay. Wow.
Is that only in South Carolina, or are they doing that in other states as well? Do you
I
know?
heard this happened in Alabama. Is that where it happened at one time? I think I heard.
Yeah, I believe that's right.
I think it's so,
Alabama, Georgia.
and it might. So I don't know how similar. I don't know anything about it.
Yeah.
But I heard they had the same issue, and I heard from an insurance agent it took them 2 years to get it rectified and straightened back out, where insurance companies were willing to come back in the state. So basically, there's been so many lawsuits that the insurance companies have left. I saw one report that for every dollar they insure, they lose like $2.49 or some
Yeah.
number like that.
Yeah.
You know, it's something close to that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
claims. Yeah.
So they're just losing their asses, and so they're pulling out. When you get left with two insurance companies, they're going to name their price because they're taking all the risk.
Right.
So when you have a $4,000 policy and your insurance goes to $37,000, you know, you can't afford it. So the law is written to where the law is written to where you could serve alcohol until 5 p.m. without liquor liability. So as I looked at this, I was like, well, you know what? That's your choices are to go out of business or sign a piece of paper from the DOR that says that my hours are this, and it's not last call at 5 o'clock. It's no consumption at 5 o'clock with, you know, violations, perjury of law, whatever the terminology is. Basically, going to lock your ass up if you get caught serving somebody after hours.
Now, could you have like a form where people sign away their liability? No.
Nope.
That doesn't work like that. Okay.
And so that's your decision. So basically, you have a business that started 14 years ago that you couldn't even drink a beer here. You could come tour the brewery, take 4-ounce samples. You had to give you a tour of the brewery, show you the process of making beer, you know, blah blah blah, to them passing a pint law around 2013 or 14 or so, to where you could drink 4 pints of beer per day at a brewery, to them passing the Stone Bill. So the Stone Bill, you heard of Stone Brewing in California, right? San Diego?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Numbers.
So basically, they announced they wanted to have an East Coast location somewhere. And of course, the lawmakers wanted Stone to come to Myrtle Beach really bad, which is a slap in the face for all of us people that started our businesses to, you know, the love of craft beer, trying to create something good for it. But we're not good enough, so we're going to bring this this California brewery over here. And they wanted to serve food, they wanted to have a restaurant, and they wanted to be able to self-distribute their own beer, which is a big no-no in this state. So all the politicians get together. In my opinion, what I recall, it was the fastest law ever passed in the state, and they call it the Stone Bill. Well, they ended up going to Richmond, Virginia. Didn't come in the state, and then they allowed all the breweries to start selling food. Now, if you sold food, had a DHEC license, even if it's a frozen pizza, you could serve over 4 pints of beer. It finally got to where you get your liquor license and all that stuff. So now you got all the breweries acting as restaurants. So when I got started, there was like less than 20 breweries. I don't know how many we have now.
It's
120. I don't
That's
know.
a lot. You got 20 just in Rock Hill.
Yeah.
You could throw a rock and hit a brewery.
Yeah.
So
They're closing too, you know.
yeah, they're hurting too. They're dealing with the same stuff. It's like you just don't realize how many businesses have their, like, let's just say September was the benchmark. Like, let's say I was the first one not to get a quote. So I don't know if I am or not. Probably not. But from some time frame, August, September, whatever last year, till now, there are still establishments where their policies are coming up for renewal and they're not going to be able to afford it.
So you didn't renew at all?
They can't give a quote. They wouldn't even give me a quote because they
Wow.
wanted 40% of my revenue to be food.
Wow.
And, you know, that's just what they wanted.
Yeah.
We're not going to insure you for all alcohol revenue. And so I'm sitting there going, look at, dude, I started this thing with no intentions of having the damn restaurant. You put all this investment, all this time, all the distribution, you made it through COVID, you're fighting the system, and now they just shut you down because you don't serve food. Because
And how long? I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but how long have you been open here for?
since 2012, 14
okay.
years.
Okay.
So this was the first brewery outside of Mecklenburg County on the south side.
Okay.
And, it was just, I just kind of saw it was happening in Charlotte. And I was like, man, somebody's going to do it. I might as well give it a shot. And that's where it got started. So it gets even more interesting on his story.
Scott, if you want to go into yours, you can.
Yeah, man. Well, I got into craft beer because of this guy.
Okay.
When he opened up, one day I just wandered out here, and Brian, you just met him, right? But
I've been here before.
okay. So he's just like, hey, come on in.
Yeah.
Let me show you around, show you what's going on.
Oh, yeah.
And so I came out here one day. It was in the summer, and I come out here, and he took me around, showed me everything. We started talking, and we just kind of been buddies ever since. But before that, I was straight up PBR drinker. And still am. But,
That's actually what I brought with me today. This and PBR.
Yeah, I still drink my share of it, and I have it at my bar. When I can get it. But so I was excited, to get into the craft beer stuff, and as time goes on, the spot that I have now is opened up as a place called the Craft Stand. It's a great place to go, so I go there too. Loved it, and hang out there, and at that time,
Could you talk a little bit louder?
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry.
Craft beer was kind of a new thing, especially in this area, and just it was kind of a booming time, I think, for it. So had the craft stand, had this place, things were great. It was booming. We had music at both places, and this place for people to gather. You come out here. If it was a nice day, you come out here, you knew there was going to be people hanging out here, and no drunken issues, no fights, no nothing, just a cool spot. And then that went around for a few years, but then COVID hit, and COVID killed the Lancaster growth that was burgeoning at that time, to include. It tried to kill this place, but we was able to withstand it out here. But it killed the craft stand because it was literally a mom and pop shop with that they was raising their family. Those two folks, and their name's Don and Brandy. I'm not gonna put them on the spot, but
That's okay.
they or tell their story for them. But I will say that they left their corporate jobs, cashed out all their 401ks and everything they could, and threw everything they had into that place and made it something special.
And I viewed the craft stand as an extension of my business. I'm out here in the boonies on my farm, and that was my way for people. And even today, I would recommend people go check out the craft stand, and vice versa.
Right.
Him and the craft stands like, you got to go check out the farm, and we actually worked off of each other constantly.
It was a great relationship at the time because we weren't really fighting the government all that much to make it work, But if when we had big events out here, we would close early and come out here and send people out here, put signs up, make social media posts. We're going to be closed. You need to come to Benford, And Brian would do the same, for stuff we had going on. But like I said, COVID just put them in a position to where they could not continue to support their family when the only thing they could do was sell beer to go, So they wound up getting in a position where they decided, we got to close down, we got to sell it, and we got to go back to work. We got kids to put through college, we got stuff we got to do with our lives, and obviously we're not going to be able to do it here. Well, when that happened, there was plenty of people saying, what are we going to do? We can't let this place go away. You know, so me and 3 of my buddies decided to buy it from them. And the theory was we all had real jobs, you know, that really weren't affected by COVID. We weren't, you know, we didn't necessarily have to rely on it, you know, to do anything for us, you know. And we figured since there's 4 of us, you know, if it goes to hell, well, we all lose, 25% of our shirt. Yeah, so we opened it up, and we were also lucky. I will say that from the time we bought it was in September of 2020. We opened up Christmas Eve 2020, and during that time, even though there was some restrictions, we were at least to a point people were allowed to come back in, and we had to close at 10 o'clock. All beer had to be off the table at 10 o'clock. You know, we literally had to walk around and take beer from people if they were still drinking at 10 o'clock. Weird times, but not nearly as weird as what Don and Brandy had to deal with.
But they had a 5150 Van Halen table.
We did have that. We still have it. Yeah. So, as time goes on, I wound up, buying the other 3 out, and it's still the same thing. I retired as well, and since 2020, we've never had to rely on the LA Tap Room to provide a living for anyone, and still don't. If we did, it would have been closed down a couple years ago, if not before. But all I've ever wanted for it was to be there, be a place for people to come and hang out, and have a beer and meet their friends, and we have live music. Comedy. We have comedy shows there. Karaoke. It's a place that people can come and hang out. It's a place that several stories where I've had men come up to me and they say, I'm really glad you have that place because, my wife and her friends can go down there and hang out for a couple hours, and I know they're good. They're safe. I know they're going to be taken care of, and it's cool. We have families coming there, bring their kids, bring their dogs, have dinner in there. We don't serve food. They bring it with them, or they order it in. Kids will walk in with their little Happy Meals, and, the grown folks will get food from one of the area restaurants, and it's a cool vibe. It's exactly the kind of spot I want. I don't want it to be super busy. I don't want it to where I like the days where we're hustling, but you don't want that all the time because it's just not the spot that I want.
You want it to be laid back, like you can come. You feel like you can come in, just sit down, hang out, have a good time with everybody.
Yeah. We do it. We do the festivals, and when we know when we have bands and stuff, it's going to get a little busy that night. But it's still got the chill aspect to it.
To me, it's a prime example of another local business trying to create a community that they want to push.
And that's what we wanted. And if Don and Brandy would have had to sell that place, or just close it down and just sell the cooler, sell the draft line, sell everything inside, to whoever wanted it, it would be like every other storefront on that block right now.
Oh yeah, boarded up.
Boarded up, falling in, nothing. So that was our goal, was to keep it going. And I've said it several times. You know what? I really don't care if I ever make any money there. I just don't want to spend my all of my retirement and my savings to keep it running. Which I've pretty much wound up doing.
And one thing both of our businesses have done very successfully, not successfully, but like when we do have an event and it is going to get busy and we don't have the employees on payroll, you snap a finger and you can get as many volunteers as you want to help you out. I mean, it's amazing how, the people that you meet are willing to help. And so you can kind of run the brewery lean and mean. When you need help, people are there to help you.
The community steps in and helps.
And exactly. what I guess is the most weird thing that's really hard to wrap your head around this whole deal is I remember, we opened up in December, and our first year's insurance, which went from December 2020, to December 2021, $4,000. $4,000 in like $4,023, I think, something like that. Just a little bit north of 4,000. And the insurance agents were apologizing then for how high the premium was. I didn't have anything to base it on, so I'm like, yeah, that's kind of high. $4,000's $4,000. But we were able to pay it. Second year came around, it was still in the fours. It was a little bit more. Different insurance agent and agency, because the one we had the year before said we're not going to write policies for South Carolina anymore. We're getting out of the South Carolina bar business
Because of what he was talking about.
Yeah,
with the,
this is when the
about when that started.
and for a point there, you'll have politicians tell you, well, the laws we passed in 2017 certainly are not having an effect on this, or it would have happened sooner. They forget to mention how long it takes for these civil cases to get through court and for there actually to be an adjudication and an award. They forget to mention COVID that stopped every damn thing for a couple of years, including a lot of the civil suits, and stuff like that. So we really didn't feel the effects of 2017 to 2021, 2022. So year three, upwards, almost $9,000 for that year. Third insurance carrier.
They were apologizing for 4. They're probably depressed at 9.
So it's my third insurance carrier, because every year, at the end of the year, and you start, you know it's coming, and you start trying to make preparations, and it's like my policy now was running from January 14th to January 14th, because there was a time where I was uninsured because there was nobody to cover it. And it was only like a week or so, but it was enough to push it back a little bit. So anyway, I find this insurance company, and everything's fine. They're really great. Go through the first year, never had a claim, by the way. Never had any issues at all. Second year comes around, and they tell me, hey, you're up to be your insurance, your policy expires January 14th. We're set to renew you for another year, and if you want us to, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to just your insurance is going up. This will be the new rate. If you want it, fine. You don't even have to tell us. We're going to bill you unless we hear from you saying no. So I got that. Went through that year.
And that was about the same 9,000.
That was like 8 at that point.
Okay.
And so then we go to the next year, and I'm like, hey, January's coming up, and they're like, well, we don't even talk about renewals till after Thanksgiving. I'm like, damn, anybody that deals with business, whether it be government and stuff like that, you don't want to be in that spot between Thanksgiving and New Year's, because everything takes twice as long or whatever. But
a month is not a long time, at all. Not for anything with business.
No. So, but as time goes on, they finally say, look, we're getting out of the South Carolina insurance business, and I'm like, so I start looking around. I can't find insurance anywhere. You call people, hey, I'm so and so, I own a little craft beer bar. I'd like to talk to you about getting a liquor liability for the upcoming year. Yeah, great. Now they start going down, asking you all these questions. Then they ask you, where you're located. What's your address? And when you tell them and you say Lancaster, and then you say South Carolina, you can feel it. Like, man, look, I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry we kind of wasted your time. We're not going to insure South Carolina. So the insurance company I had even says that, and I've had them for 2 years at this point. Never missed a payment. Never gave them any pause to even notice me. Money come out of the account automatically every month. Good deal. And they're like, yeah, we're getting out of the South Carolina business. So I start looking around, and I'm just getting turned down, you know, and it wasn't for any other reason at that point than where I was. And they would tell you that, yeah, we're not doing South Carolina anymore. You know, it's just the risk factors are just too high in the state now. You know? And so I finally go back and get that third year from them. I guess I called them on a good day. You know, I called a guy, and I'm like, look, you know, and the guy tells me, he says, I'll write you a quote, but you ain't going to like it. You know? And at this point, I'm like, well, you know, let me see how bad I don't like it. You know? So it went from 6 to 17,000, you know, 16,980 something, you know, for the year. And I'm like, shit, that's high.
Yeah.
You know? But it was better than nothing. You know? And there was no other alternative. You know? So I wound up getting my third year from them. You know? This year, they wouldn't even talk to me. They just flat out said, look, we're not covering South Carolina anymore. You know, we've been turning people away, you know, and you're lucky that, you know, you have insurance to January, you know, because if your renewal date would have been any further, you know, forward than it was, you know, you wouldn't have got insurance anyway, you know.
They would have dropped you?
Yeah. Well, they just wouldn't have, they would just not renewed me earlier, you know. Right. I was lucky. Mine renewed in January. If my renewal month would have been the same as Brian's, you know, 2025 would have been hard because I wouldn't have got it anywhere. You know? Right. So I got, by virtue of my anniversary month, I got basically an extra year than a lot of people. And you're seeing, you know, you can go on social media, you can see breweries closing, everything closing. And then this year, man, it was just like, you know, it's just impossible.
Dude, wedding venues.
I got one quote.
Wedding venues.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, really? I didn't even think about the wedding.
You're dancing and drinking.
Yeah. I got one quote. It's $37,000.
Wow.
Yeah. And I went back, you know, obviously I couldn't pay that, you know, on a business that makes no more money than mine does. And they're like, you know, they want to talk about serving food and all this stuff. Look, you know, my whole bar is not as big as this little open area right here. You know, there's no place for a kitchen. You know, I never wanted to get in the restaurant business. You know, I want to have a little bar that people can come in, have a few beers, talk to their friends, and leave. You know? And that's our model. We've built, you know, a business model that allows people to bring their dogs, which you can't do, you know, unless it's a certified service dog into a food establishment. You know, they can bring their own food in, you know, because what am I going to make that people want to eat every day? You know, nothing. You know, just don't have the room for it. So we went on through all this, no quotes. You know, finally got the one for $37,000. I'm just like, can't do that, dude. Can't do it. I went back a couple weeks ago because, you know, I knew, you know, summer's coming up and we got all these festivals coming up and everything, you know. And I talked to one of the guys that we had been dealing with, and I'm like, man, just see what you can do, you know. He says, let me throw everything out there, you know, maybe somebody will buy it. Let me see what I can do. And he went back and he said, he said, the one company that gave you the quote before is willing to let you stay at that same quote they gave you before, even though, you know, the quote's good for like 90 days. It had been like, you know, 110 days. But don't, you know, but they want you to know that they wouldn't give this quote to you now if they hadn't quoted you already, you know. And I believe them, you know. I mean, it's a business, you know, they don't know me. It's all business for them, you know, but it's just too damn much. So that's, you know, that's why we're in the same boat as Brian. And I want to read this, because this came from, I'm not going to say which insurance broker because, you know, he might not want people to.
Yeah, that's okay.
You know, to this.
It's just like giving out.
But we were talking, you know, our hope was, you know, we went. January 14th was the last night we was open past 5 o'clock. You know? So I was hoping, you know, they legislators will tell you, you know what, we've passed some reform, you know, designed to give you guys some relief. And I can tell you a lot about what we've been told from the politicians, you know, and I believe it, you know, for the most part, you know. But anyway, so I reached back out to one of my guys, and during the last year, I should mention, during the last year, there's only 2 companies that will insure anyone in South Carolina for liquor liability. Well, if you and I are the ones doing that, and we're the ones that's taking it in the shorts for the whole state, we're going to agree on what the price is going to be. I'm not going to undercut you, and you're not going to undercut me. And we're going to make, we're going to do our best to say, we got losses that have to be made up, and you few guys that are still hanging in there are the only people that can help us make them up in this state. So we'll insure you. If you're willing to pay this ridiculous amount, we'll damn sure we'll insure you.
Essentially, a monopoly on the whole market.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, they're the last 2 men standing, and the only reason they're still standing is because they're the biggest. But they didn't become the biggest by paying out the ass. So somebody's got to pay for that. But I was hopeful when I reached back out to this guy that since some time had passed, and they pushed up the legislation, and everything. I said, well, maybe some people were trying to get back in the game, So I hit him up one day, and I'm like, look, man, I really want to try to get this bar coverage, Could you just go back out, and see what you can find out? And he said, yeah. He said, I will, and because I told him, I said, I'm hopeful that maybe some people are concerned, or not concerned, but because of what's been done with the legislation, that they're willing to maybe, put their toe back in the water a little bit, And I feel a smaller place, might be the place for them to test that out. It's not like it's easier to maybe put restrictions on a smaller place. You know what you're dealing with, and it's not like trying to open up a business. We've been in business for 5 years. It's not like we're trying to open up a place under this climate. And so he hits me up a few days later, and he says, hey, Scott, this new liquor law is not nearly as helpful towards small businesses as our legislatures are saying. They are requiring a per loss amount of coverage to be 50% of the aggregate. Here's what that means. If you're required to have a $1 million aggregate, you will have to have coverages of $500,000 per occurrence. Last year, that requirement was $100,000 per occurrence, which shoots the premium up much higher than last year. And then he goes on to tell me that the best bet I have is to become a nonprofit so I can become a private club and all this stuff, which I know is true, but it's really not something that.
Not direction you want to go.
Yeah, it's not. Craft beer is about community. There's people, especially in the summer, that come to my bar. I've never been there before and will never be there again. But they're going to Charleston. They're going to the beach. They're on their phone. They're on Untapped or some other social media post, and they're looking for a cool spot to stop and have a beer. And they're coming from up north, and the craft beer market and what's available up there is totally different than what's available here for the most part. Absent the big, the Budweiser brands and the Coors brands and the Miller's brands that have bought out all the craft beer places, but the local places, which is what we try to, I won't say local, we're regional. I try to keep my beer from the low country to the mountains, and 90% of everything I have, that's where it comes from. But anyway, they're going to come through, and their phone says, hey, you can stop here and have a beer. And that's what they're going to do. They're going to come in and stop and have their beer, talk a little bit, tell you where they're from, ask you about your town, and they're going to go on, and you'll never see them again, for the most part. And you can't do that if you're a private club, and they say, oh, this is a private club, we can't stop there. So that's where we are now. We're just beating our head against the wall. And any politician will tell you, hey, we've done some stuff that's going to help these small business out. It's just going to take a little bit for it to line out. They've either been misled, or they're just flat out telling you something that's not true.
Right.
Because it's not true. What they've done now, it's just like, you got these 2 pots of money, and we're going to take some money out of this pot, so this looks cheaper, but we're going to throw it in this pot, and then we're going to times it by 2.5, and
mix up some shit and good to go.
And make it worse. It's like the car game. No down payment for 90 days, but don't don't worry about the interest rate. Don't worry.
Yeah, for real.
We'll look at it over here because we're going to shove it straight up your wazoo on that end. So that's kind of where we are with all it. We're just screwed, man. Yeah.
So we even tried a little harder, both of us. We were both not even really talking about this, but trying to figure out how in the hell to keep this thing going. And I've always done events, and we discussed this a little bit, but then we're like, the law says you can serve alcohol till 5 p.m. without liquor liability. I sent an email to the DOR before I shut down and got a response from them. And it might take a second to do this, but they, I should have had it ready.
That's okay.
And so they, but basically they said that, yes, you can be open till 5 without liquor liability. And my question was about special events. If we can get insurance passed, for a special event, can we do that? And the response from the DOR was, well, that would be up to your insurance carrier. That's basically what it said. Okay, well, so to me, that means if somebody's willing to insure you to 6 p.m. and you have insurance, you can serve. If they want to insure you to midnight, you can serve. That means a green light for an event. If they want to insure you for a week, a month, or a year, it's the agreement between me and this insurance company, what they're willing to give me and what I can do. And so that was one of the deciding factors of why I signed the piece of paper. So, I can sit here, do other things. I can make epoxy tables. I can run a sawmill. I can sell some beef. I can do some different things to kind of stay alive. Close at 5 o'clock, which is not the worst thing in the world when it comes to going to bed at 8 o'clock at night. Entertaining is tough. It's not all fun, right? And, but if I could do a couple events a year, that I can have a good day, make a good chunk of money, brew a batch of beer. So on May 23rd, I had a pirate show scheduled. So these people were soliciting stuff. It's kind of like the Renaissance festivals. These dudes get up in their gab and they dance around and make jokes and play some music and shit. And, you got jump houses and everything for kids, and the parents can come out here. And we got the food trucks and all that crap, and everybody's making money, and you get a couple hundred people out here. We had Montgomery Gentry here last April, and we had about 1,600 people out here, somewhere in that neighborhood. We've done midget wrestling every single year. We'll get 500 to 800 people out here for midget wrestling. You have a good day like that, dude. That ain't the worst thing in the world. And then Scott tried. He found a website, and tell him about this crap.
Well, that's the thing is, we're in this bind because of insurance, right? Through nothing else, insurance. That is the driving factor that has changed the landscape for beer in South Carolina. So, but we're talking about the event stuff. When I close, I'm like, okay, I'm not going to have to pay, this ungodly amount of money every month for insurance. But what I can do is buy some event policies for single day coverage that is still the $1 million, that's required, that still meets the law, and I can have these events, because we have one event, we used to have this event every other Tuesday night. It was trivia, and man, my little bar would be packed, and it was always, for the most part, it was always the same people, come in, they had their teams, and our trivia, I hosted it, it was all in-house, my girlfriend, who probably does more for the bar than I ever have, she would do the trivia herself, she would pull it all up, and we had a fun time with it, it wasn't probably not the most professional trivia contest ever, but we had fun with it, our people had fun with it, and there were some people that said, man, we look forward to this so much, and we kept it every other week to keep it fresh and to give people, it was regular, but it wasn't something that was going to occupy every Tuesday of their life, every Tuesday of their life. Yeah. So the first couple times we did it, I got the insurance, and it's certainly expensive. You couldn't do it every day, you know. And if you just did it every weekend of the month, you couldn't afford it, you know. But for special events, you know, it was worth it, and people knew that it was being, you know, that it was expensive, and they was willing to, like, you know, support it and everything, and so we did it. So what I would do is I would get the insurance policy. South Carolina DOR has a website. They call it My Doorway, but it's their website that, you know, you have an account on and you can go in, and I'd send it into DOR. You know, and I say, hey, please find attached this insurance policy for an event that we want to do Tuesday night. You know, it'll go past 5 o'clock, but it will certainly be over before midnight. Mm-hmm. And normally by 10 o'clock we were done with trivia. You know, and first couple of times I sent it in, they sent a response back. You know, thank you for sending this in. We'll add it to your account. You know, and no problem. You know, and so I'm like, you know what? This ain't a bright light at the end of the tunnel, but it's enough light that maybe we can get to the end of the tunnel. You know,
right?
And then one day I'm at my third job, I guess, you know, and
wow, you're a busy man,
yeah,
Scott.
yeah. Well, you know, literally my retirement and laying brick all day is why I still have a bar that's open. Mm-hmm. You know, but I'm all right with that. You know, so I get this email and I look at it, and my license has been suspended. You know, and at first I'm thinking, okay, it's, you know. My license got suspended once before because of a clerical error where I sent in some insurance paperwork and they didn't get it. Mm. They got it, but I don't think the right person got it or whatever. But you know, it was a mistake and it was fixed. You know, no harm, no foul type thing. Mm. And you know, people make mistakes, and I'm good with that. And I thought this was going to be the same thing. You know, so I immediately call up and I talked to the lady that answers the phone, and she says, yeah, because she's the one that sent it. And she says, well, you know, yeah, you signed this piece of paper saying that you would close at 5, and you've been staying open past 5, so suspended your license. You know? And I said, well, look, you know, I sent these insurance policies in. And she's like, yeah, you can't use that as a workaround. You signed this piece of paper saying you would close at 5. And I said, and I do close at 5, unless I send you guys an insurance, you know, certificate. It's called an Accord 25. It's your statement, you know. And I said, but when I get these, I send them to you days in advance, you know, and you know, she says, yeah, well, you can't do that. You can't use that as a workaround. And I said, I don't look at it as a workaround. I look at it as a work through. I'm just trying to keep my business.
Like, it would be different if you were saying you were doing trivia every night.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right, yeah. And she says, no, you can't do that. And our conversation went downhill from there. Partially her fault, partially my fault, you know, but you know, it just got to the point we weren't going to have a good conversation, you know. And, so stopped there. She said she'd have her supervisors contact me, and so I got on a conference call with a couple of the supervisors, you know, and I explained everything to them. And they said, yeah, and they said, well, you know, technically, you know, it's not really against the law, and we think that, you know, that your heart was in the right place and you thought you were doing the right thing, but yeah, we just can't do this. You know, you have to have, you know, continuing coverage. You know, and I said, no, wait a minute. I said, well, my insurance policy went out January the 14th. I was open that night, knowing I wasn't going to have insurance the next day. I said, was it legal to do that? And she said, oh yeah, absolutely, 100% legal. I'm like, so what's the difference? You know. And the lady tells me, I understand what you're saying, and it makes all the sense in the world. All I can tell you is this is our policy, this is our guidance, and you can't use special event policies, you know, to circumvent having continual insurance company. And then she tells me, in fact, you can't have a special event at your licensed establishment.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's bullshit.
Yeah. And I'm like, why? You know, I got the insurance coverage that's the same as if I had bought a 10-year policy, right? Mm-hmm. It's still you have that one day that you're open. Any event that or any occurrence that happens is all based on that day and the insurance that you had for that day. There's no difference. And she said again, she says, sir, she says, I understand what you're saying. I sympathize with you, and I don't disagree. I'm just telling you that we can't do that.
But that's their policy. That's not what the law says.
Right.
So how are they allowed to make a policy that's not in the law?
I don't know. I really don't know. And
So now you're
that's
working against two different evils.
Yeah.
well, that's why I agreed to lay off of it, because we had an elected official that says, I'm going to try to. This is and the words out of his mouth is, he said, there's no way this is what we voted for. And he says, I'm going to try to get some resolution on that. And because of that, I said, the best thing I can do is not muddy the water.
Poke the bear and all that.
Yeah. And then we get to this thing like, this weekend. I was open this weekend to 11:30. And you know how I did it? And it's completely legal. It makes no sense to me. Is I leased my bar to someone else. They got a special event permit and the same insurance that I would have bought to stay open from the same company. They bought 100% legal, 100% cool, and that bar stayed open till 11:30 under a special event license, special event insurance, and all of that. The only difference was, instead of me doing it, someone else, another businessman, had to do it.
So Scott, you're telling me I could come to you and be like, hey, I want to lease your bar till 11:30, and I just give you like however much money.
Well, if you have a retail license,
right,
and you're able to supply a federal employee identification number, yeah, you could lease my bar.
Wow.
And basically you have a bar for the day. You got to buy the beer, but you can only buy the beer under that permit. That's the only beer that you can sell under that permit. But yeah, it can be done.
And your license is suspended for 1 day.
Yeah, and when they do that, it's technically suspended, but what they say, it's on hold for that day.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
Yeah. So, and that's the law. And it doesn't make any sense. And what is safer? You might be a great bar owner. You might know all the rules, and you might follow all the rules, and you might be the best one-day bar owner in the history of one-day bar owner.
Right.
But who's better at it? Who's done it for 5 years?
Oh, yeah.
And who is more likely to follow all the rules and regulations? And it's just like we're at the point now that we're not really worried about what's safe and what's in the best interest of the public and all this other stuff. It's just like these are the hoops that you can jump through, and the same thing. You can't do that every day. I wouldn't do that every day. But I did do it this day, and I kept a close eye on everything, and when I leased the bar, I leased everything, I had my people there. I was there, but
that's just insane to me.
And I'll probably get a call next week saying, "Hey, dude, no." Even though I did call them ahead of time and talk to some people that have been good to me. I mean, I can slam an organization and not slam the people that are representing it. And because honestly, all they can do is follow the guidance and the
They're working
the
for
rules.
a paycheck.
Yeah. I was a police officer for 32 years, and I sympathize with you saying, yeah, it's kind of stupid, but that's the law. And I get it. But
It's almost like one of those situations where it's like, okay, well, if you want to run an event, he needs to rent your business out. When he wants to run an event,
as it is right now,
like, that's what it
I could
seems
do
like.
that because we all have the same requirements. I could, and it's not even like it's a way for the state to make money. The permit costs $10.
Yeah.
It's they don't make any money off that. It's just $10 processing fee. But that's the only thing. It'd be one thing if they said, you can lease a bar. It's going to cost you $1,000. It don't. It's $10.
And he's a retailer, but I'm a manufacturer.
Yeah.
So by law, I have to sell my beer to a distributor to sell to a retailer. Now, we've had our fallings out past COVID with distributors, and I got my views on that. I don't have a problem getting into it. But if it's being a manufacturer, and let's say I lease my pasture to Scott to do a beer festival, I cannot sell my beer.
Without going through a distributor.
He has to buy it for whatever distributor sells and their brands, their current brands.
That's insane.
Yeah,
That's
and that's the other thing.
That's
and
insane.
and all the problems Brian has can be solved by him driving 4 miles that way. Yeah. If he was in North Carolina, he wouldn't be having any of these issues.
Beer freedom.
Yeah,
Wow.
he could self-distribute. Yeah, he could do all this great stuff. Yeah.
So do you think any of that will come this way? Or do you think it's just going to be, we're going to be in a bubble?
Man, I don't know. You know, I'm like I said, I was a cop for my whole adult life, and that does show you the worst of people, but it also shows you the best of some people. And I gotta believe that everything that's going on right now is there's some of the politicians out there that did not see it going this way, and they're just as surprised and put off by this as we are. You know, but these laws that were passed, in my opinion, there's, I'm willing to say if I had, if my daughter was killed by a drunk driver, it might change my whole attitude about beer and people and everything. I get that, but that's where we are now. I think everything we're suffering through right now, from some people, was probably well-intentioned. For those that are well-intentioned, there's probably just as many that saw the money side of it or the business side of it. You have people. We had a politician the other day that we was talking to that was talking about the trial lawyer mafia in Columbia. Look at our politicians as a whole and see how many of them are attorneys. Not only politicians with law degrees, but politicians that are active attorneys. That have firms or work for themselves, but they're still, and they still got skin in the game. And it just makes you scratch your head and say,
It's a conflict of interest.
Yeah, and I've had some elected officials say, when we pass these laws, we ask somebody from the insurance lobby and stuff to come and testify, and nobody would come. And so we didn't know all this stuff was coming. And my question is, if nobody come to tell you how they thought this was going to affect the insurance game, why did you pass it without talking to them?
How did you pass it? They didn't show up.
Yeah, you have the power of subpoena, but I can't believe, out of all the money that's being made in South Carolina through insurance already, and the risk, it's basically a gamble. Insurance, just like life insurance, it's all a gamble. I'm going to make more money off of you before you die. All these people as a whole to compensate for any money I'm going to pay out. I can't believe that nobody would come from the insurance lobby and say, look, we think this is a bad idea, and this is why we think it is.
Yeah.
But if they wouldn't, why would you pass stuff that's going to be that impactful without having somebody from that side?
Right.
You wouldn't pass some type of medical spending act or some sort of new medical procedure without listening to someone from the health profession give you their educated opinion as to why this is a good idea or a bad idea.
Well, the only thing I can come up with is that they would do that is because they're benefiting themselves, and they don't care about the outcome on us.
Yeah.
We're just a some people call the word chattel.
Mm-hmm.
We're just these little tax paying people, and we're not writing checks for big corporations, and we're just not as, it doesn't matter as long as they can look at the big picture of what benefits themselves. Or Junior is an attorney also, and Junior can create a really good lifestyle that took Daddy 50 years to create, that Junior could have in 10 years. And I think that's what it is. But we are just insignificant to it. They're not looking at in small businesses is the backbone of all this. They don't care about solar plants. They don't care about data centers. Big corporations create pink slips.
Yep.
And big corporations hire people, and those people are looking for entertainment, and that's what we are. But that is not; they're not taking that into consideration of the whole scheme of things.
Yeah, and it's just one of those things, man. Is like we're to the point now is, what are they going to do about it? There's been over 40 some businesses at this point that in the last couple of years have closed because of this insurance. And people, people are well intentional. Say, well, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? And I'm about to the point. Sometimes I get frustrated, and I want to say, dude, do you not think I thought of that shit already? Yeah. But I mean, they do it from with me anyway. They do it from a place of concern. If there was a way to get around this, and serving food don't get you around it. It don't. It puts you in a different risk category, which helps. But it puts you in a position that if I can take an $80 bag of chicken wings and turn it into $300, then yeah, I can. I got a cushion there, and maybe I can price my beer a little cheaper because nobody's regulating how many chicken wings I can sell somebody. And so you got that, and it's just a shell game at this point, and it doesn't need to be that way. It needs and my coverage. You can talk inflation or whatever, but the same coverage that I had in 2021 cost me $4,000 a year. That same coverage now would cost me $37,000 if I could afford to pay it. The coverage hasn't increased. On my end, it's still the same. It's $1 million liquor liability policy. Then it's $1 million liquor liability. Blah blah blah.
It's okay.
Liquor liability policy now, and they've changed it now to where you can. There's ways to lower it down to 500, and people say, "Man, we've slashed it in half for you. What are you bitching about? You ain't. You ain't slashed it in half. You've fudged the numbers, a little bit, so it's 500 here, but you've changed the per occurrence, by 250%. That's no help, bro. That don't help nobody. And in fact, it's made it worse. And I know that there's politicians out there that voted on this stuff because they voted with their heart. They thought it was the right thing to do. They felt for the victims of drunk drivers and stuff like that. And I feel for that too. I get it. And
nobody's trying to sell enough beer to get somebody drunk enough
to go out and do something.
And and we all know when somebody's had too much and everything else. And I've had some situations here where probably even more here to a point of like people who bring their own that maybe indulge a little bit too much before they get here. And I've had to cut some people off. Like, dude, there is no way. And you probably had to do it too, and it's like, when it gets to a point like, dude, seriously. And these people get pissed off at you.
Oh, yeah.
And like, what do you mean, man? Da-da-da-da-da. And like, dude, man, there's no way in hell. And, whatever. But that's not, nobody's trying to get people shit-ass drunk. There's no way that either one of us want to encourage somebody to drink more beer just because we have to sell 40 beers a day for insurance. Yeah. That just contradicts every damn thing of what's going on.
I don't want to sell 40 beers a day at my business. On a weekday. Why would I do that? To do that would be with the amount of people I have come and go. It don't make sense. But there's so many things. There's a guy came in one day. This was probably 2022. Never seen him before in my life. He comes in and sits down. He's a pretty cool guy. He says, "Hey man, my first time in here. Today's my birthday, and I'm just out. I'm like, "Really? It's your birthday? Man, I'm gonna buy you a beer." So I did. I bought him a beer. Told him happy birthday. I drank a beer with him. We're sitting there talking, and his conversation just starts changing a little bit. He just starts kind of getting dark and everything, and he's like trying to talk to one of my servers that was going nowhere fast, and finally I'm just like, dude, look, you probably just need to go someplace else, and he did, and so he had one beer at my place, and well, about 2.5 hours later, it's like probably 7 people in the bar, and we're all sitting around talking, and I look over, and this dude's back, laying on the couch. Got a couple couches in the bar, just for people to sit on, not to lay in, or sleep in, And I'm like, when did he get here? And I said, yeah, he came in like 2 minutes ago. And the guy said, I think you were in the restroom when he came in. He came in, walked right over there and lay down. I'm like, well, thanks for the heads up. So I go over there. I don't know where this guy been, or what he been doing for the last couple years, a couple hours. But one, he was toasted, and somebody had beat the shit out of him.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I just called the police to come and get him, and they did. And I'm telling them, look, I don't know what happened to him. I can tell you, it did not happen here. I served him one beer earlier, but I'm glad that he came back in there, because if he'd have got in a car and went out and killed somebody, if they can put him back in my bar, I'd have been liable, at least as far as initially, I'd have had to fight it and all this other stuff. I gave that man one beer. It was his first beer of the day, according to him. But who else has that type of liability? Nobody. And with what's going on now between edibles and
CBD.
I'm pro all that stuff. This is supposed to be the freest country in the world. And if you're going to have that freedom, then you got to have the personal responsibility that comes with it. And that's the thing for me. It's like there's no personal responsibility, no personal accountability anymore, and no other industry, the auto industry, doesn't have that type of accountability. The pharmaceutical industry doesn't have that type of accountability. A freaking convenience store that has a beer cave, that has cases of beer cold and ready to drink, don't have that type of responsibility. So you can work all day, you can go into any convenience store in Lancaster or anywhere else for that matter, get you a case of beer, take it out to your car and drive off and drink beer all the way to wherever you think you're going and kill a family of 4. And it's a tragedy, absolutely a tragedy. But you know what? It's not a tragedy that convenience store is going to pay for, because they sold you that to go.
Or like the Chevrolet dealership for selling you that car that you hit that family with. It makes no sense.
Are they liable for having that much horsepower?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. How many people get killed because somebody's driving while talking on their phone? Well, we've passed a law, in South Carolina that says if you got your phone in your hand and you're driving, that's against the law. But you know what we haven't done is made the damn phone companies, responsible for it if it happens. And haven't told them you need to make your phones to where when your phone realizes that you're moving, you can't use it.
But then they're going to be flipping on Sirius satellite radio trying to find the next little channel if it's comedy or whatever, and you're still distracted on your screen in your vehicle.
There's a million ways that people with their head up their ass can kill somebody else, but the only people that are mandated by legislation to be responsible for it is on-premise beer servers.
Well, and to me, and this is just from a whole outside perspective looking in, but it reads more like they're passing the buck to y'all because, who's going to jump to y'all's defense? You know what I mean? And that might not be the intention,
I think that's absolutely the intention because, if you have a parent that's lost their child to a drunk driver, you got to feel for them. Nobody, I have kids. I couldn't. I don't know how I would react to that. It'd be a tragedy. I get it. But so you got these organizations that are trying to get legislation passed. And I get it, man. Like I said, I feel for them, and I don't disagree with what they're trying to accomplish as far as making people responsible. But you can't make me responsible for somebody having one beer in my place and then 6 hours later killing somebody because they've had one beer at 12 other places, or had that beer and then went out and cracked the seal on the liquor, a bottle of bourbon that they bought, and now they're driving around, shit-faced.
It's almost the same kind of question of, oh, well, who killed somebody, the gun or the person who pulled the trigger?
Right. Yeah.
Like they're choosing to do that themselves.
We're supposed to be the freest nation on this planet, and I believe that in a lot of ways we are. But what are they going to do? We passed open carry, which I'm as pro gun as they get. I'm not exactly a proponent of open carry, but I like the fact that this state has recognized as your Second Amendment right to do it. And who has responsibility for that?
Yeah.
You.
Exactly.
The person.
Exactly.
And they haven't put that on. They're not telling all these pawn shops to sell a gun. Well, you know what? You said for you to sell a gun, you got to have $1 million policy that says that this person does this. And since we've had so many people killed by guns in this state this year, that insurance is going to go through the damn roof. But when it comes to beer and places that just sell beer, it's a whole other ballgame. There's no other industry, no other small business model you can think of that is getting the screws put to them like that is. And 5 o'clock. Apparently, I can only assume that there's some scientific data somewhere that says it's physically impossible to get drunk before 5 o'clock. Even though I'm pretty sure I've been drunk before.
Yeah, I was about to say, I can tell you from experience.
Can I open for happy hour for the third shifters? How would they view that?
Yeah. No, that's true.
And if I can serve without liquor liability insurance, they pass a law that says I can. Who is liable?
And man, just like the 5 o'clock thing, what makes that the definite hour? And then if you're open to 6, you got to pay the same insurance cost as somebody that's open to midnight.
Bullshit.
It's like COVID. It spread faster after 10 o'clock.
Exactly.
I went to a bar one time and I ran in with my shirt like this, and I ran in. I slid into a bar stool. I was like, "Woo!" If it was past 11 o'clock, it would have got me.
So have you had any issues have you tried to do events in the same way that he's done?
My plan was for May 23rd. That was my plan. We've been trying to, look at this and figure out how we make this worth the while. Because right now, if I can't do an event, if I've got to close at 5, and I'm not distributing beer, why in the hell am I open?
Yeah.
And I like drinking beer with people. I like meeting people and everything else. But we're making a living off of tables and sawmills and stuff. And I'll be up there cutting wood, and you're open until 5, and nobody showed up until 4, and you're kind of got in your little rhythm, like you're working. And now that time's changed, I could work till 8 o'clock at night. And then one person shows up. One car, 2 people. And they're like, man, we've never been here before. We've always wanted to come check it out. Just like Scott said, it's all about, the people. I get a lot of business from people playing golf at Edgewater.
Yeah.
And they're typical the Charlotte people. They're checking out a new golf course. And, and they leave Edgewater, and they're like, man, there's got to be a beer around here somewhere, and they find this place, and, and then you just got to stop what you're doing. You're going to make $20, maybe. And then, it's like, man, how'd you get this thing started? That's a 3-hour conversation.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
And you're like, oh good God, here we go. And they've sucked the fun out of this.
Right.
I normally don't have an issue tell them the story. How'd you do this? Blah, blah, blah. But basically, since September, the only thing I do is talk about insurance. That's all I do. And they're sucking the fun out of it. And every, like Scott said, everybody is trying so hard to suggest something that you can do.
Yeah.
And and they really, really mean well. But if I hear one more person ask me, "What if you turn it to a private bar?"
Yeah.
They're like,
That's missing the point.
put a hot dog machine in, and I'm like, man, that don't help me. That's one. I'm not going to generate 60% of my income.
If y'all want to
from a
play,
hot dog
ask us
machine.
how y'all figure out a way we could do this to see how mad y'all can get us right now. Y'all go around there. Come on, man, give it to us.
Well, I felt myself slipping into that. Like as he was talking, I was like thinking, all right, now if I was Scott, what would I do?
Yeah.
And but then I was like, as you were talking, I was like, he's probably heard all this like a million times. You know what I mean?
Well, it's like I didn't want to do it, but I even considered getting a food truck.
Yeah.
I'm right on the corner. I could park a food truck outside every day while I'm open. But that don't work. One.
Scotty,
it just won't work. That food truck would have to be parked in my bar with the wheels off.
Yeah.
For it to work. And one, I'm just like Brian, man. I don't want to have a restaurant. I just want to have
A place to
a little chill, cool spot that people can come and sit down and meet their friends and make us some few new. We've got people, man, especially now with everybody that's moving in to Lancaster from up north, and we got people from Minnesota and Michigan and New York and places, Ohio places, and we have people that are now like close friends that met in our bar, and didn't know anybody, we got people that just moved to town, didn't know anybody, and one day said, let me slide in here and see what's up, and now they've got and I guess they could have made friends some other way for sure, but now they're just part of our family, we hang out, they come in and you know what they want when they come in the door, and they're willing to help you out any way they can, and it's just a cool little vibe, just like out here, Brian and I have been good friends for many years, and it started right here. I'd come out and help him with events, and he would help me any way he could, and it's kind of a lifestyle type thing, or just life in general. But man, like I said, if everybody was if every industry in South Carolina was getting the screws put to them like we are right now,
it'd be a big problem.
Yeah, it'd be
like it would be a much
state would be
wider
dead.
issue than just y'all's area of the neck of the woods.
Unfortunately, it's not kumbaya time. It's fight time.
Yeah.
And this whole kumbaya bullshit everybody does that goes out of business, and how much we appreciate you, and how the people, and the good times we've had, and we'll see where life, screw that.
Yeah.
It's time to fight.
Yeah.
So now, I guess my question would be like, if they're trying to put the screws to y'all, like, what's the end goal? Is it like to bring in like mainstream manufacturers in to like take y'all's place, or like like have you guys had any thoughts about that?
I got theories on some stuff.
Just not to tread too far into conspiracy. I mean, we can. I love talking about conspiracy, but I just was curious about if you guys had any thoughts.
I think that if you look back and I'm 51 and whatever how old you guys are, but back in the 70s and 80s, you would go after work, you would stop at the Holiday Inn for a few beers. And in the 90s, it was all chain restaurants. You would go to Applebee's and Outback. Oh my God, we got an Outback. Yeah. I mean, I would drive to TGI Fridays 30 miles, and then so they had their little heyday. And you can only go to Margaritaville so many places and so many Hard Rock cafes in the world. Yeah. And like people, just kind of burned out and seeing the same shit in every damn town. And so everybody kind of like man, where's the local brewery? Where's the local bar? And people are looking for that cool little venue, that little Key West little spot in some little town. You know, if you're in Milwaukee, I want to know where the locals drink, because I don't want to go to freaking whatever chain this is or whatever, blah, blah, blah.
Tired of drinking at Chili's every night.
Yeah. You're right. And so they're looking for that little sweet spot of you can actually talk to somebody, leave house like, dude, that place is cool as shit.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I do the same thing. If I'm somewhere, I mean, I've picked hotels based on where the local brewery's at.
Yeah.
Doing beer festivals because I know I'm going to do this beer festival, look at 2,000 drunks. You know, we're sampling beer all day, and I get done. I want to go eat something that's not a chain restaurant, something that's real, willing to spend a little bit more money for it. I'm going to go have a beer, and probably I'm going to talk to somebody that works at a brewery, and we'll end up in the back room somewhere snipping on a tank. You know, that is the fun part of the business.
Yeah.
That shit was fun as hell. And everybody does the same thing. Man, where's the local joint, man?
Yeah.
And so everybody goes to the local joint. And these big corporations with the big lobbyists, the big influencers, they want their business back. And how do you get the business back? Eliminate your competition.
That's the thing. And Applebee's and Chili's, they don't have to scratch their head and say, damn, where are we going to get liquor liability insurance this year?
Yeah.
You know, you're talking about a national corporate structure they're insured.
They're good. They're not going to worry about it.
Do they meet the requirements of the law? Absolutely. But they don't have to go out and broker that themselves. They don't have to go out. The manager at Applebee's on the bypass here in Lancaster ain't scratching their head. Damn, how am I going to get liquor liability insurance for this place this year?
Yeah.
Who do I talk to?
Yeah.
That shit is done.
If I'm not here, he's not here, Grinders ain't here, 521 Barbecue's not here, where are you going to go?
That's a good point. They could say they're clearing the board for all these people coming in. Is what it sounds like. You know what I mean?
It feels that way.
Yeah. That's a terrifying thought.
Which, so I have probably a much different background. I know I have a bunch of different background than all of y'all. So essentially, I'm like,
Are you a midget porn?
no, not quite, but I am.
Are you willing to learn?
I am, maybe. But I am 3 years and 4 months sober.
Okay.
So, and
great.
there are 3 times a year where I have a beer, and I want specific, like a really specific environment when I go have my beer, and that's like my birthday, Thanksgiving, like like right around that time of year,
Sure. Yeah.
that kind of thing, and that's what I do, and that's my only time. That's where I limit myself. That's pretty much it.
Good.
Because I recognize I had a problem,
Yeah.
and that's what a lot of these people who do go and kill somebody, that's what they should do.
Yep.
And that's
So-
the thing, man.
And that's why I
kudos.
appreciate y'all. That's why when he was like, "Hey, we're gonna go talk to these these people," I was like, "Heck
had
yeah,
no
we're
idea
gonna go
about
talk to these people!" Yeah. So that's why I still will fully support y'all. I might come in, have a conversation, find another way to throw a couple dollars, but other than that, I'll still be a part of it.
Man,
You know
look,
what I mean?
I have one of my friends and a longtime customer that, he drinking became a problem for him.
Yeah.
And he recognized it to the point that he went and went to rehab and got help.
Yeah.
And God bless him, man. He still comes in every now and then, hangs out, and one aspect I hated to see him go, but that I firmly believe there are some people that for whatever reason, drinking just can't be their thing. At least on a regular basis or semi-regular basis, and that's cool. And kudos, man, kudos to you for recognizing it was an issue.
Personally, I know my issue is more so liquor, which is why I can have those couple of beers
a
year. But it's just the fact of if I do have a beer, there's definitely a solid 3 weeks where it's I can go buy me a bottle of whiskey right now. Right after, it's I could go do that if I wanted to, but I choose not to. So,
I mean,
that's the thing. You're strong enough to deal with that. And
Yeah. That's why I'm whenever I do, it's almost stepping back in time, and it's I want that local environment well, there's not a ton of people that are just sloppy, being, essentially violent for the most part.
Yeah, this is not spring break.
Yeah.
This is not, a roughneck bar.
Exactly.
We also, and where else can you go anywhere? Like, here's an example. We have a customer that we know very, very well. And he's an older gentleman, and he came here and usually has his 2 beers. Mm-hmm. And we're very specific. He tells you how many beers he's going to have. Mm-hmm. And he's had some issues, like with vertigo and stuff like that. And he was walking out here. He walked out of here, and he looked about as drunk as a drunk could get. Wow. And he was having an issue. And he went and kind of went to the picnic table. And I was like, dude, you are not driving anywhere. And, and I had another customer here with his kids, 2-year-old kids.
Yeah.
And know him very well, too. And I was like, hey, man, you mind just kind of watching the shop while I take him home?
Yeah.
And I went and got my wife, because the brewery's in my backyard.
Yeah.
I go get my wife. I said, I need you to follow me. Try not to say his name. To his house.
Yeah.
And he can't drive. And it's not because he was drunk. And he has some issues, and he's been working on that, but he's at that age. But there was no way I was going to let him drive out of here.
Yeah, exactly.
Doing what he was doing. And, and is the Applebee's manager going to do that for you?
No.
Hell no.
No.
And
They'll just call the cops and tell them to take you home and hope they do.
Oh, yeah.
And also, they just don't know you. They're just not interested in that.
No.
It's
they don't care.
No. It's a number, or another person that comes into mind.
And my thing is, so, other part of my background is, like, I used to manage at Cookout. So, like, when everything does shut down in Lancaster, they all want something greasy to eat.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, hey, y'all got to get out of my parking lot. That's what I dealt with.
That's another thing with him. There's restaurant workers, that want to go, that get off. Most everything closes here at 9.
Yeah.
And they're done working.
Yeah.
And Scott was open, 10? Was that your, 11 sometimes or whatever?
That was 10th of the week. And then, depending, we normally close at 11 on the weekends unless we had, like, a band or something, and then we might stay up to midnight.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot of workers right there within 2 miles of his location that wants to get off of work and wouldn't mind going and having a beer.
Exactly.
And the government has limited their ability to do so.
Yeah.
Which is ridiculous.
Yeah, a lot of the local restaurants, they would close up shop and they come over and they know they only had time for 1 or 2. Yeah. And
but basically, the government is telling us that they have, in my opinion, they're violating my constitutional rights to life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, to run my business the way I want to run my business. Yeah. I've never had a claim. I've never, ever have had a liquor liability claim. This place is, about as clean as is going to get for 14 years of business.
Yeah.
With very little anything. We've had one fight here in 14 years. It was between 2 food trucks.
That sounds about right. They do get, very competitive. That's a competitive business. That is a competitive business.
They left here and came to my bar to tell me what happened.
But it's like so don't you're just holding me hostage. You're taking my rights away from me. I can't run my business as I intended. And we got to call it's modern day prohibition. Is what we're at. We are in a modern day prohibition to where they are strangling us through insurance policies. Not saying you can't do it, you just can't afford to do it. Yeah. And that's a modern day prohibition.
And my thing is like, they probably don't see it as that, but the people who do, it's like, well, look how great the prohibition worked.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. Yeah. Like, it did not stop anybody.
No. You got organizations that are victim driven, and they're victim driven for a reason, because when tragedy hits you like that on a personal level, and you decide to pick up the flag and march with it, who can fault you?
Yeah.
I can't. I don't think anyone can. But those organizations also have lobbyists, and they throw a lot of money towards their agenda. And none of that is going to change what has already happened, but it could very well have some impact on somebody else.
100%.
I get it, man. I'm here for it, and that's why my little spot. Everybody knows. Nobody comes in there and says, "I'm gonna come in here and get shit faced on $10 beers." I mean, it's not like that, But everybody that comes in there knows if something happens and maybe they just didn't eat that day or whatever, and they don't feel comfortable driving, they can hang out as long as they want. We'll get them a ride and we'll take them home. I've got there's never, anytime I'm open, it's very rarely that there's not somebody in my bar that I can't say, "Hey man, you mind watching the bar for me for a little bit?
Yeah.
I'm gonna run this dude home." And they've probably helped out as a volunteer either here or there or whatever. And hell, if there's 2 or 3 people in there, which is not uncommon, if I didn't have any other option, I said, "Y'all got to go. I'm gonna take this dude home." But you're not going to go into a corporate place and that's going to happen.
No.
It's just not going to happen.
No.
You're not going to go to the manager of an Applebee's and say, "You know what? I just don't feel like driving. I don't think I should be driving." What are they going to do? They're going to say, "Call Uber. Do this, do that, and if you don't do that, I'm gonna call."
Did we ever get any Uber in Lancaster?
Yeah, we got Uber.
Yeah,
we do.
Yeah.
Oh, man, we're moving on up. Man.
We got Uber
man.
and DoorDash now. But now, I worked at Food Line for a long time, and we didn't have DoorDash when I left in like 24. So that's been in the last like 2 or 3 years that's happened.
And part of that is like just how fast we're growing. That's why
Yeah.
we're getting all that stuff. Because like Lancaster is growing, Richburg is exploding.
Yeah.
Like with everything that's moving there, and like that's right around the corner.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it's like, and but statistically, Charlotte is the fastest growing city on the East Coast.
Per capita, right? Or
Yeah,
something
I think in the
where-
country.
Yeah.
Maybe in the country. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure.
South
but
Carolina's the fastest growing state in the country.
yeah, I know that it's an average of like 3,000 people that move to Charlotte like every month.
Yeah.
So like it's crazy the amount of people that are moving into Charlotte and the surrounding areas.
Which is going to affect us because
Yeah,
we're
it's
not
all
even 30
it's
miles
all
from
overflowing.
Charlotte.
Because like that's the thing. It's like, hey, would I want to live in North Carolina where I got to deal with the X, Y, and Z, or do I go to South Carolina where I can deal with X, Y, and Z? And it's like, okay, well, where are the property taxes lower? Where is this tax lower?
Vehicle
so on and so forth.
inspection.
Yeah. Do I have to deal with vehicle
Yeah.
inspections? Not down here. You don't.
No.
Like,
Just don't
And-
start a brewery.
right?
Yeah, for real.
Apparently, that's a good like that's the deal breaker right there.
Yeah.
So, but
I just can't believe that this is happening to y'all. My
It-
heart goes out to y'all for everything that's going on. And I mean, like when I think about it, what's kind of like the legal path that y'all see forward, and it's like kind of the way out for this.
What do you think?
I mean, unless they are able to roll back. What bill was it that they passed specifically? Do y'all know?
It was dram shop law is what they coined it.
Okay.
And and like I said, it's started in 2017, and here we are. Almost 10 years later, and Pete, the whole argument. Well, if this was the problem, it would have been it would have been a problem in 2018 and 2019. And when you examine it, that just factor in COVID and how long it takes for civil cases to be resolved,
Right.
and all that stuff.
And what
I
was
just
it
don't
called
hold
again?
up.
What was
Dram
it?
shop law.
Dram shop?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dram shop.
and see, like to me, in my mind, thinking it's like really there's only two solutions to try to turn everything around. It's either a new legislation that actually works, or some kind of policy that insurance companies will come in where it's like, hey, if you haven't had a claim, then this is the max of what your policy is going to cost you.
Like if you don't have a speeding ticket, your
Exactly.
insurance ticket,
Like, and look at it the same way, because at that point, y'all are not only are y'all are true, pursuing y'all's happiness, y'all are responsible no matter what you're doing.
And then it's penalizing
So-
the people that aren't responsible.
Exactly.
For serving,
Yeah.
Exactly. Then it's let them pay $37,000 a
Yeah,
year
for
for
real.
insurance. They're killing people. Like,
You said it right. They need to wake up
Yeah.
and listen to us. If not, they got to go.
yeah,
Well, and the thing is, and it kind of sounds socialist to an extent when I say this, and I apologize to everyone for what I'm about to say, but they make these laws and stuff that they know is going to impact these private businesses,
Yeah.
are in, and then the insurance industry, and it's like creating a situation and then just throwing the baby out with the bathwater,
Yeah.
and just, hell, I would pay, if we had some sort of state-sponsored insurance, that looked at your specifics and said, this is how much money, this is how much beer you sell a year. Based on that and this, that, and the other thing, here's what we feel your risk factor is. At least that would be one thing. At least there would be some system in place. But all they do is create the circumstance, and then they leave it up to private for-profit industry to come up with the solution. And the solution is,
We're going to make money.
and they have to make money. They're in a money-making business, man. And it's all a gamble. Is no matter what type of insurance you have, as they're saying, you guys as a whole, we're going to make more money from you than we're ever going to have to pay out because of you. And when that flips to where they're paying out more money than they're making, the only recourse they have is keep jacking up the premiums.
and I think other part of the issue is the fact of like why this isn't something that everybody knows is because they don't have to deal with it.
Right.
No.
Yeah.
It's only a few people that have to deal with it, but it affects everybody that's around them.
Well, and it takes away your community places where you can go
Exactly.
and hang out. I mean, how many spots in Lancaster are there where you can just go and chill? You know what I mean?
Look, man, we have
Very few.
this is no lie. We have a local church that comes in our bar and has Bible study.
Yeah.
They do, and they'll drink one or two beers. And they don't have to. Some of them drink none, and that's cool. But it's called Pour Out the Spirit, and they come in and they have a program in place, and they come in and they all sit together, or at least in groups of 5 or 6 or whatever, and then they talk about they talk about God, and so it's not like we're not a community spot that caters to no one in particular. It's not like we're going in and just saying let's come in here and raise hell, praise Dale, and drink as much beer as we can. It's not that type of spot.
It's not like me back in the day at a bonfire.
I've had a homeschool meetup at the brewery. And basically it was like they can bring their kids.
Yeah.
The kids can play cornhole, whatever, run around the pasture, look at the donkeys and everything else. And the parents were having a meetup. It was a homeschool. Be like, it's the most odd request.
Yeah.
Probably what you weren't envisioning.
Yeah, I was like,
whenever
okay, sure, you come on out.
Yeah, why not?
And but that's what it is.
Yeah.
And it's just the craziest thing I've ever. It just mind boggles me what we were dealing with. It's just all the years, all the fun. It's just. I don't get it, and I actually want to make the awareness for people, for everybody. It ain't just me and him. And there's people we don't even know, and we gotta get loud.
Yeah.
And in fact, we're going to share your podcast, and I will tag every single politician in the state. And they don't respond, and it's time consuming. I don't care.
We just getting the word out there.
Somebody, we need to promote you for what you doing what you're doing, which is we appreciate. But we talked about making a podcast, and to talk. I don't care what you do. Something's pissing you off that these people do to us.
Oh yeah.
And so I was kind of like, bring your own beer. can't serve it.
Yeah.
But we can find it. This is my residence, and you bring your own beer, and we can talk about whatever issue you want to. Just keep on tagging every one of these politicians to see if they'll get it. At least make it uncomfortable.
It's almost like you need to get a like a serious petition going, and just get it out to as many people,
Right.
Just so they realize, hey, this is the problem. We would very much appreciate your support in this. If you can sign this piece of paper, just so we can say, hey, we have 100,000 people that realize this is an issue, and then something like that, sending them that to politics, because that's the thing. It don't take 1 million people
You can
to
call
catch attention.
We can call it BYOC. Bring your own complaint.
Yeah, dude. Hey, I'm up for whatever,
Yeah.
And I don't like doing this. This is not what I enjoy doing, But somebody's got to do something.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and then otherwise, if not, then guys like y'all fall by the wayside, and then what's left for us?
Yeah.
I mean, as consumer, I know you don't drink, but I
Hey, I
I'm
do
sober
3
after
times a
this
year.
one. Yeah. But I mean, what are we supposed to do? Go back to Applebee's? Go to Hoppin'?
Oh no, I won't.
Nah.
I refuse.
But
I do want to say before I forget, we are having State Representative Brandon Newton is going to come to LA Tap Room this Thursday the 19th. It'll be slightly after our hours of 5 o'clock, so we won't be open to serve anybody, but our doors will be open, and he's going to come and have a town meeting. He wants to talk, about this, and I will say, out of all the elected officials that our bar has contacted, now Brian has talked to some other folks that have been responsive. But when we started tagging people and calling, he is the only person that has even tried to have dialogue with us.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we're going to have a town hall meeting type thing.
what time is that
Thursday
supposed to start?
afternoon. We close at 5, but we'll stay open, and I think this is going to start at 6.
Okay.
But he's going to come in and talk to folks and have a kind of a town hall open air discussion about this and.
No beers though, right?
Yeah, no beers.
No beers.
Ah, man. After 5, I forgot.
It's
Yeah,
crazy.
the business will be closed, but the doors will be open, and
Yeah.
there'll be no commerce of any type, because
For the record.
yeah.
Just to be clear, for the record.
But we will be open, and we will be receptive, and maybe we'll try to have some food or something in there. But
Food?
yeah, since it's
You're cooking?
yeah, I'm gonna try my kitchen to see what I can do now. But we are he will be there to address community concerns and to update people on what reasonable steps, or what steps he can reasonably see happening in the near future. Because I don't think the optimist side of me, which doesn't come out that often, still believes that this was not the end game for the majority of the people that say they're representing the citizens that elected them. I think this was victim driven, and I think a lot of people had their hearts and their heads in the right place, or their hearts in the right place and their heads someplace it shouldn't have been. But the only way that it's ever going to get fixed is to reverse the process that got us here.
100%.
And it feels like a knee-jerk reaction, like you guys talk about it and everything, like especially with the framing of like the woman that got unfortunately killed with the Polly Beach thing. Like it feels like a knee-jerk reaction to that and events like that. I mean,
Absolutely. I think there was a couple incidents that happened around the same time, and it's one of those things. Man, we got to do something. And if all you got is a hammer, every problem looks like a nail.
Yeah.
And
What's crazy is anything can be a hammer, though.
Yeah.
If you try hard enough.
For sure. And I just think that is the only thing that that makes me not want to, start screaming anarchy from the rooftops and saying,
Yeah.
and I do still do that on occasion, but I
Right there with you, just so
I
you know.
gotta believe that there's some of our elected officials that did not see this coming. This is not what they voted for.
Yeah.
Right.
But what's incumbent upon them now is to stand up and say that and fix it, because there is no quick fix.
Call these people out.
Yeah.
People, they should be calling these corrupt people out.
Yeah.
So, have you guys talked to any other breweries that are having like these issues? Not just in Lancaster.
Oh
but, like,
yeah, I mean,
yeah.
Lexington. Everybody's trying to help each other out. I mean, there's always licensing issues and everything else. And most breweries have became restaurants. There's very few of us that don't serve food now, and the ones that were the big ones that I looked up to, that I kind of like, man, if I could be like that, if I could sell that much, they're out of business.
Wow.
There's some big South Carolina breweries that have gone under, and there's a lot of small ones. There's so many breweries. I don't know how many breweries. I only know, but it's just it is. We got to get the public involved in this. I think people are just too kumbaya. They try to just, they don't want to be controversial, and we just have to. Somebody's got to get loud, and we have a Brewers Guild that I'm not a member of. That you pay your dues, and the lawyer kicks the can down the road, and we tried our best. And we're making progress, but pay your dues next year. And I've been talking with politicians about issues in this state directly to kind of bypass the guild. Like, we could do something to fix this, and that's been since COVID. 6 years. Oh, we could sell kegs. Do you have a kegerator at your house? Do you have a kegerator at your house? Nobody does. So you're going to allow me, that's what we've got in 6 years. As a brewery, we can sell kegs to a customer. And we can't sell a half barrel keg, a big keg, only the small kegs.
And it's not like they can hook it up here and drink from it at a table.
Right. So who has a keg? I mean, like, there's some home brewers that have keg. If you're a home brewer, you make your own.
Yeah.
I mean, there's very few people that literally buy kegs. And, I mean, how many kegs have you sold? He is a retailer. He can sell kegs. How many kegs have you sold?
A handful. And it's been for like wedding receptions and stuff like that. I think I had one guy that actually had a kegerator, and he came in and bought a six-store of your beer, actually, when you was able to still distribute it before that whole mess started. But that's it. That's not what people do.
So we really got nothing. We get a lot of talk. Some of the politicians have done some very nice things. The governor, we did a fundraiser for the governor, McMaster, was standing right over here. People came, they raised a lot of money for that man that day. And it doesn't get you anywhere. And so we are at the point where I don't know what to do except for getting loud.
And, overall, the thing that I hate most about our legislation in general is they make bills and laws so complicated that you can have one clause in there, and that changes the entire thing completely.
Oh, yeah.
And everything is so convoluted, because that's the thing. That whole bill could have been great, and it would have been exactly what everybody thought it was, except for the very last thing they added into it. And then that's what screwed, that's what screwed everybody.
Yeah.
And
so what else? I mean, you don't have to go through item by item, but is there anything else in this bill besides like the stuff that applies to y'all?
I don't think in that bill. They've made some changes to the DUI laws and stuff like that, and that's a whole other thing that that they made this caveat. I'll call it that because I can't think of any other word that fits as well. But if you say you kill somebody and you're convicted of DUI, they can. It's in the criminal code now that they can actually have you pay child support for their family. You know.
Okay, yeah.
And
I mean, I don't disagree with that at all.
Well, I don't disagree with it on face, but then you have to look at, what is that person's ability to pay that.
Well, that's why they want you to sue your companies.
Yeah, and then it is paid at what expense,
Right.
Maybe this guy was DUI because he just found out his 6-year-old kid has cancer, and so, and he just had a really bad day, a real bad life experience, and I'm not excusing anybody killing anybody because they got behind the wheel when they shouldn't have been.
Right.
But so now he has to pay this, and he has to neglect his
kid.
child to go down this road, and I feel that there's a mechanism for that already, and it's through our civil courts and our civil processes. And I feel that's where that belongs,
Yeah. Or on the flip side, what if it's somebody who's just essentially just started drinking and doesn't know their limit,
Yeah.
and then does it anyway?
And that's
ruining
life.
their whole life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody,
But conversely,
Yeah.
conversely, there's not a law that says if you take a gun and shoot a dad, you have to support his son for you have to pay child support to his son until
That's true.
That's true.
There's nothing like that anywhere. So it's like everything is aimed towards this great sin of alcohol, but there's plenty of ways that you could kill a young father and leave a child without a father or a mother or both. But the only thing that gets you mandated by state law to support that child now and pay child support is the DUI law. So why? And it's all the same thing. It's all being driven by the sins of alcohol, so to speak, or whatever.
so we have all different backgrounds and all different professional backgrounds and situations. And somebody, and of course, that's what you do when you meet customers. People talk. We talk a lot. And somebody came up with a theory about something that I kind of agreed with, and see what your opinion on this. But somebody came up with there should be a 3 strikes and you're out rule. So let's say you manage to get 3 DUIs, and you manage not to kill yourself or kill somebody else. Okay, that's not good.
No.
But if you actually got 3, somebody said you should have a non-serve ID.
Yeah.
Can't drive, you can't even be served at a bar. And somebody says, well, they have to check everybody's ID. Everybody, regardless of age. Well, isn't that what they want?
Yeah, that's
With
what they want
anyway.
already.
With
Yeah.
digital ID, with all these ID scanners
Yeah.
they want us to have. And so, if somebody had a non-serve ID, and you're just sorry, man, law says you can't have a beer here.
Yeah.
I mean, that just took a lot of liability off of us.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
100%.
And I'm kind of you know what? I kind of don't
No, I
think
can-
that's the worst thing I've
I
ever
can
heard.
definitely
Put
get behind
the
that.
responsibility on the person drinking, not
And-
on the bar that they're drinking from.
That's
or
right.
You, the establishment.
Right.
And see, that's the thing. You already have 3 strike rules with DUIs, where if you get so many DUIs within a certain amount of time, you never can get a license again.
Yeah.
So why not?
And that'd prevent the guy on the moped from going to the liquor store, if you know what I mean, and knocking the
Well,
jack
at
out
least
on the
himself.
moped.
Oh, yeah.
At least himself going to the store.
Right, but you couldn't no serve, no, you can't buy it nowhere.
Yeah.
And that
Well,
would
that's what I'm saying though. There's always going to be loopholes that people take.
Yeah.
But it's just the fact of
But wouldn't that also make people kind of think a little bit harder before they do?
yeah.
But also too, you got Brian that would know, all right, this person's no serve. So if I see him drinking, I know somebody bought that for him and gave it to him. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah, and in the majority of communities in South Carolina, because there's not but one Charleston, and one Myrtle Beach, and then there's places like this, all over the place. How long would it take us to know that that dude
Oh yeah.
You can't serve him.
Oh
You
yeah.
know?
And I
Yeah.
would say, like, to even go more to your point, like, at least the experience I've had going out to bars, especially local bars, like, that's a very community driven place.
Right.
They're not even like other customers in there aren't gonna let you like go and like get in a car drunk. Like they're
Oh,
gonna
yeah,
interview,
yeah.
especially if they know you.
Yeah, I
Like,
used to be the first person to take somebody's keys.
Oh yeah,
And,
absolutely.
and I'd hand my keys off to somebody
Yeah.
if it was
Yeah.
me.
So that's
You-
another
like-
thing people say. South Carolina and Florida have the highest DUI rates in the country. That is, you don't think that has anything to do with spring breakers from other states?
yeah.
Oh, 100%, yeah.
You
Myrtle
know,
Beach. Golf
So
club.
you are basically making me liable for bad decisions, spring breakers, and even in Florida, how many South Carolinians go to Florida for party time, New Orleans, Mardi Gras, whatever? That these are our own people going there to have a good time and make very poor damn decisions.
Yeah.
But you're penalizing my small business for the poor decisions of these people.
Absolutely.
It's almost like they have identified somebody that they can try to push everything off of them, so that's what they choose to do.
Oh yeah.
And that seems like that's exactly what it is.
Well, and anytime something bad happens, they're looking for somebody to blame or somebody to point the finger.
yeah.
Like with the situation that we talked about that kind of kicked all this off with the Folly Beach lady. Like, I'm sure her family was like, her and the family of the driver too was like, who do we blame for this?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it goes from blaming the person that's ultimately responsible to the people that they feel that they can collect from.
Mhm. Yeah.
Because I'd be interested to see these big settlements that these insurance companies are paying out. From the server's point of view, from the bars and stuff, what that person actually had to pay out. And I think you're going to see that it's nothing.
Oh.
And even if they kill somebody in the car, they got car insurance. But if I can tag 3 bars for $1 million, do you think I'm going to give a shit about getting $250,000
No.
from State Farm because of this? No, you're going to leave that alone.
Oh.
And so you're penalizing and profiting from everyone other than the person that actually committed the offense.
And unfortunately, it's one of those stories like it's sad to say, but the more tragic it is, the easier it is to sell and to get more pull to be like, well, I deserve this because this sad thing happened.
Yeah, and just think about it. If you at your worst were put in a position as like you can take full responsibility for what you did, and your insurance company, your car insurance is going to have to pay out all this money, and and you're going to suffer ramifications for who knows how long down the road through hire this and this, that, and the other thing.
Yeah.
Or you can testify for the insurance company and say, yeah, I went in these 2 bars and I was already too drunk to be served, and they should never have served me, and they should
get
have
up
done.
on the stand and be like, I don't even remember going in their bar.
Yeah,
Like-
they should have done better, And they'll say, in exchange for your cooperation and testimony, we won't go after you personally, but you're going to have to step up and be willing to testify that these bars overserved you when they shouldn't have. And right then, you know what? I probably don't need to mention the 6 mini bottles that I had in my pocket.
Yeah.
No. The handle that was sitting under the driver's seat.
I'm gonna leave all that. I'm gonna leave all that shit out of my testimony.
Yeah.
Nobody's asking me about that, so I'm not going to volunteer that information.
Yeah.
And the last thing I kind of want to say is, I should know as a business owner to train, if I had employees, or train them myself, how to identify if somebody is stumbling drunk that should not be served. And I really don't need the government telling me I got to take a 4-hour training course to teach me that.
Oh yeah.
We know, and if you are the type of, if you do make as a business, if you do make the poor decision for somebody to come in here stumbling drunk and give them a beer, you should be 100% liable for that mess.
Absolutely.
But
I agree.
But also, if you have a DD and it's your birthday and you want to have the worst hangover in your life the next morning, and your wife says, I'm driving him anywhere he wants to go. If that's a decision that you make, that you want to feel that bad the next morning, why do I care?
Yeah.
Well, and then it comes down to like knowing your customers.
Yes, you know your
Yeah.
customers.
Know your customers.
I mean-
Know the people they're with.
Yeah, I mean, you said you have a lady's like, yeah, man, let him do his thing. This is his birthday, and I told him. And, as long as you're assured that somebody's taking care of this person properly, where's my liability in that?
Exactly. Then it's on the DD. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
right.
Really, I mean,
Right, it is.
if the DD's gonna, make sure the DD stays sober the whole time.
But I'm not everybody's mother. I'm not your father. I'm not your caregiver.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And whatever.
At the end of the day, that shouldn't be your responsibility to begin with.
But as caring about each other, it is my responsibility
Yeah.
to make sure
Right.
that we're all making good decisions.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I, as a patron of this place before, I would say you do a fantastic job of that. You know what I mean? And I've been to his place before. I've never gone in there and felt like, I would like to his point. I've never felt like I was unsafe going in there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I've been in some bars where I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't know about this
I
place.
mean, this is about as serious a conversation we always had, and we'll get into conspiracies and do all kind of crazy shit,
Yeah.
and talk about all kind of crap. But we do it. We pick on each other.
Yeah.
But that's the fun of why we do this.
Oh yeah.
Is to
100%.
give everybody hell. Talk about whatever gay porn you're working for right now. And like that is like what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
Like there's
Yeah, you're
nothing
right.
serious
Yeah.
about this crap.
Yeah.
Nah.
And we got to bring the fun back. We
Oh,
got to
yeah.
we got to make it. We got to get off of this serious bullshit and get back to picking on each other.
Absolutely.
And it has to happen very soon.
It does. I mean, otherwise you guys are gonna suffer. You know what I mean?
Yep. Thanks, man.
Oh yeah, of course. Oh
You got any? Well, wait for him to.
yeah, I was waiting for Scott to get back.
You got any questions for
No,
us?
so, just real quick, I'm gonna say I'm gonna get home, or actually, I'll probably re-listen to it real quick in some of the louder points just to make sure that the audio came through clear.
Yep.
And then I'm uploading this tonight. So as soon as it's up, I'm posting it on Facebook.
Send me a link.
Oh, yeah.
So we can nail it
Oh,
tomorrow.
yeah. I tag y'all in it. and
Yeah,
stuff
just
as soon as
tag
it's
us,
done.
whatever, and then I'll
Um,
start forwarding and tagging people and.
Do y'all have a YouTube or anything?
Yeah.
Right now? Okay, so I can tag y'all on YouTube as
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
And then I'll tag you on Facebook. You got Instagram? Or
Yeah.
Yeah, tag you on that too. Twitter?
Yeah.
Okay, the only things I got right now are Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
This is
And Snapchat.
Benford Brew. We got the whole. I tried the TikTok thing. I get too many naked chicks. That's the dumbest thing. But it should always be Benford Brewing or Benford Brew.
Right.
The Twitter thing is. I did change it to Boxcar Timberworks and Farm. But it's Benford Brew. It's
Okay.
always going to be
Yeah,
Benford
yeah.
Brewing, Benford Brew,
Yeah.
and just trying to make some points about other stuff. The X thing doesn't really work out too good for me for some
Yeah.
reason. I don't know what.
Yeah, I really don't use that as much. I use Instagram, Facebook all the time, but
Yeah.
TikTok and all that, I don't have a TikTok at all.
But we got close to 10,000 on Facebook, and and there's about 20,000 total for all this social media crap.
Yeah.
And we're gonna start tagging the politicians and rolling with this
Heck yeah,
mess.
100%.
get it rolling. So, y'all, let's do a shout out for y'all's socials real quick, so that way
Oh shit!
Yeah,
Oh, no.
just to kind of plug y'all and get y'all out there real quick.
In closing remarks,
In closing remarks.
right?
It'll take a second.
No worries, no worries.
As they are pulling that up, I will go ahead and say my closing remarks, which is, you should 100% support local businesses.
Yes.
Number one. Number two, you definitely need to support these cool spots where we can build more community. And that includes the breweries and other places like this that we're talking about. And this whole issue that we've been talking about is the biggest issue
Yeah, facing our community right
facing
now.
our community right now, because without these people creating these spots, there is no community.
Right.
Otherwise, you got to go to Chili's. And don't nobody like no Chili's.
Or in our case, Applebee's.
Yeah, Applebee's. Yeah, Lancaster Applebee's.
Oh, God.
Don't nobody like Applebee's.
That's a sad affair in and of itself.
So my Facebook page is Benford Brewing, And Instagram is, I know the X or Twitter is Benford Brew, and Instagram is Benford Brewing Farm on Instagram. That's good enough, right?
Yeah, that's fine. Scott, you want to plug yours?
Facebook, we're just LA Tap Room, and Instagram is LA Tap Room 803.
Okay.
So it's pretty close.
And you don't do X or anything?
Not as far as I know.
No, sorry.
I don't think we do. I think we stick mostly to that, And we're on Untapped as well, and I don't think we have an actual handle. It's just it goes by venue on
Okay.
Untapped. That's
See, I didn't know that was out there till you were mentioning that.
Yeah, Untapped is basically a beer-driven social media type thing. It's more about beer than just a way to find beer and find venues and.
It works for him, but
stuff,
InBev bought them, and I just quit. I just turned it off.
And you can access menus and see.
Yeah, it works good. It works great for him with the menus, but
Yeah.
That's it, man.
Oh.
There's plenty of people out there just like us in the same spot, and there's plenty of people that are smarter than us and done gave up. And said this shit ain't working no more. We're gonna go do something else. And like I said, Brian's built a life right here, with his own hands, and he's found ways to, spread that out. And if he couldn't have done that, he wouldn't be here either.
Right.
and my wife, she's in real estate. It takes two of us. It's like this is not easy. This is hard. And same deal with him. It's hard, and we're just fighting to make it happen.
Yeah, and I just feel bad. I feel bad for other people that are almost in my position, but they're different. And I've said this, and I'm. Some people have mistaken it for me bragging, but I don't need that bar. Mm-hmm. I don't need it to make money. I don't need it to put my kids through school or pay my bills. I'd like for it to pay its own bills. To me, that bar is a spot. It's part of a community. That's the only reason it still exists. If it was simply a way for me to make money, there's 100 other things I could do.
Yeah. It's a passion more than anything.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm a retired police officer. I have a pension. I'll lay brick all day. I don't need that bar to keep my lights on and keep food in my belly.
Right.
And if I can't make that bar work in the fortunate position I'm in, people that need it to survive, to forge a living don't have a freaking chance. And that's why I should have probably got more vocal sooner, in the process. But it's one of those things, it's like, until it happens to you, it's not that you don't know it can happen, but you have the hope that this shit has to change. This is so ridiculous. It can't stay like this. Absolutely. And then next thing you know, a few years go by, and guess what? It hasn't changed. It's only gotten worse. And then you start seeing the impact it's had on these other businesses. And it's ridiculous. And it's unfortunate. It's not fair. And it's not in anyone's best interest. If people learn anything through prohibition, it is that people are going to drink.
Mm-hmm.
But let's
You're not going to stop it.
No, but there's ways to do it that are more conducive to community and to humanity, and I tell you what, ain't it? Having a beer cave where somebody can go in and grab a cold case of beer and drive down the road and slam as many as they want, but you don't hear Circle K bitching because it's not bothering them.
Mm-hmm.
And I love Circle K. I go in there every morning. I get a cup of coffee and a breakfast burrito and go on about my business. But there has to be some reform, or we're just going to lose a very important part of community for a lot of people. And when I have people, you have some people that feel for you on a personal level, and they come, man, I hate this happened to you. But then you have some people that come in and are like, Scott, I hate this is happening to me. This bar can't close. This is this is part of my, this is how I interact with people. This is part of my whole,
This is my spot.
This is part of my life now. I'm invested, I remember how that spot got there, and I remember who brought that painting in and put it up there, and I remember this, and I remember that, we don't want to be in a place where we just have all these, cold corporate type, businesses. That's all that's left. It's just not the kind of place I want to live in.
Yeah, and I agree 100%. And I'll say my little bit of closing. Like, I really appreciate y'all, giving us the opportunity to come on, or you know what I mean, coming on for us, you know what I mean, and vocalizing what you guys are going through. A couple months ago, I saw your video and the stuff that you were posting about it. And I was like, this is crazy. My fiance works in a restaurant that serves beer and stuff, so I was asking her a little bit about it. She didn't really know much about it because, they got the food serving thing. Right. So I was like, well, maybe. And I thought then about talking to you about it, but then I was like, maybe he doesn't want to talk about it. Maybe he would rather, But I'm so glad that, Brian, you posted and we were able to make this happen. And, hopefully getting this out there and making some change happen. I mean, that's become part of like the goal of this is like reaching out and touch the community and showing that Lancaster has more to offer than just like an Applebee's or or a place or an extension of Charlotte. We're our own community. We have our own like people around us that love and care about each other. So
the crazy part is you can't name anything past Applebee's.
Yeah, I know, that's what I'm saying, right? So there's more to Lancaster than just that, and that's part of what the goal of this is. So.
And the more to Lancaster isn't bad.
Exactly.
Like, that's the other thing.
Exactly.
It's like, honestly, Lancaster for a long time has had a bad rap. That's not the case.
Absolutely, yeah.
There's definitely highlights.
Oh, yeah.
For sure. And,
So-
and there would be more if man, you have to be a fool right now to come in and do what we're doing. If you might have been something that you was I've always said one day I'm going to do this or whatever. Or I'd like to try this, but you'd have to be off your rocker to come in right now and try to damn open just a craft beer place, or start a brewery up when you got breweries that are just closing not daily, but certainly weekly and monthly, just places that what the hell, And thank you guys for coming in and spending 2 hours listening to us ramble on.
Oh, man.
That's part of listen, I love doing these, like getting out, talking to people, that's been, if that was all I did for a living, like I would be happy.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
sure,
Just because I like going out and talking to people.
If nothing else, it's eye-opening because it's like, I had no clue. Like, I never would have thought it was like an issue.
Mm-hmm.
And I would have never expected like everything that y'all are going through. So it's like, it's important for me to know because although I might not be there every single week, I know people who are.
Yeah.
So
Or who would be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
Support goes a long ways, man.
That's what's important to me is it's like I like to support, and because my thing is like corporations. Like I've worked in corporate. I'm tired of corporations.
Yeah.
Like bring back the mom and pop shops. Bring back the little local businesses that know exactly what they want, how they want to run things, doing everything the right way. Bring all of those back.
And that's what they're scared of.
That's what they're
Absolutely.
scared of.
That's exactly what they're scared of.
But that's capitalism.
That's capitalism, baby.
Thank you, man.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Guys, thank you for listening. Please like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell not to miss the episode. This has been Shirts Off number 48.